sharing videos of men on stage at the bars.
A culture that once ritualized women as life givers has slowly converted that awe into ownership. Pre-patriarchal agrarian societies centered earth deities that were either female or dual sex. Their rituals centered around fertility, both of the woman and of the land. Power sat with whoever managed food, land, and birth, and usually that meant women. It's the women who tended the gardens and grew the crops. Early agriculture grew out of gathering, not hunting, while the men were off hunting antelope. Remember, they could go for days and then fail to kill the antelope. The women were learning how to be more efficient with agriculture. Imagine how annoying that was in a Neolithic village. The women all sitting around waiting to add the carcass to the stew, otherwise his ego's going to be hurt and we won't be able to live with him. Going back as far as 7000 BCE in Anatolia, there is no evidence of kings or palaces, but there is a lot of evidence of female figurines tied to harvest and fertility. Patriarchy doesn't really rise up until animal domestication. In Sheila's video, she talks about how women on stage at these clubs still remained the focus of attention, even at the height of patriarchal capitalism. Creepy bros would only come to the clubs to look at the pretty ladies. Obviously, under capitalism, that dancer is now commodified. They're selling you a fragment of that old power, repackaged as spectacle, but it's still worship. Men know this. That's why there's all these weird videos now of these guys trying to just stand on the stage and be worshipped like the dancer. They're not dancing though. They look confused. They don't really know why they're up there. It feels good. This is why. The deeper tension is between being seen and creating. Historically, women's power has come from their ability to create, whether that's literally or artistically. Patriarchy redefined that power as control over who gets to be seen. The men on those stages crave the power to be seen. They never had the authentic power to create. The whole architecture of patriarchy sits on a moment of pivot when power as life-giving flipped to power as life-taking. Instead of power sitting with who could create life, it has become about who can take it. The domestication of animals is not just keeping them, it's breeding them for slaughter. That logic of control, containment, and selective reproduction carries straight into how men began to view land, women, and then labour. Domestication was power through possession. It gave men a way to have power in their societies without really being useful. It's the animals who had to sacrifice for you to get that power. And you can still see this in the language: herd, stock, even husbandry. The word husband comes from houseband, the one who binds the household. That term actually comes from livestock management. Husbandry originally meant the care, breeding, and control of livestock. Now it means the care, breeding, and control of the woman. You can see the vocabulary of control slipping from animals to people. And it's the language itself that naturalized this hierarchy. Also, around the same time in the geological record that men were claiming dominion over animals, ritual sacrifices of women and children also start to appear. Blood and blood sacrifice became sacred theatre for patriarchy. It's proof of their authority. It's proof of the right order. Agriculture feeds empire. Empire feeds armies. Humans before patriarchy lived for tens of thousands of years in cooperatives without hierarchy. Shared labour, shared child raising, and collective food systems are how we survived. Hierarchy is not the human baseline. It is a maladaptation that was figured out by one group who realised that they could use it to gain control. And that control bought them a predictable evolutionary advantage. They could now force the women to mate with them. Once men linked food, land, and reproduction under ownership, Domination became the organizing logic of the collective. But underneath it was envy and insecurity, a refusal by men to live within interdependence. Men couldn't create life, so they built systems where they can control it instead. It's not evolution, it's a coup, and it has been rationalized as order and civilization and progress ever since. When you hear words like unlocking value, scaling opportunity, resource development, safeguarding civilization, ensuring security, protecting free speech, this is all patriarchal logic. We must dominate you to keep you safe. The idea that women need men, or that colonies need governance, or that users need platforms is the same through line. Dependency on them is manufactured, usually by fear, and then moralized. Abstract language about growth and market and efficiencies hide who's doing the taking and who's paying the cost. It's control disguised as care. This is for your own good. You need us to keep you safe. Domination systems don't run on care, they require genocide. Patriarchy needs something to consume or erase to prove itself as legitimate. From the slaughter of animals, we went to the slaughter of witches and heretics and colonized people. Now it's the poor, the occupied, the unworthy. Genocide isn't a horrible accident. It is the cost of maintaining the patriarchy. The system needs to expand to justify itself, and every time it does take new land, new markets, new order, it kills what won't submit and it calls it civilization. Modern states call it security, but it is an identical pattern. So when people watch Gaza and ask why the world can't stop this, the answer is deeper than diplomacy. The logic that's causing the genocide is the same logic that keeps the global economy together. And it demands these deaths because domination needs spectacle. They need to show you that they can still decide who lives and who dies. However, weak power needs to assert itself. Spectacle is a sign of weakness. They show more brute force because their legitimacy is wearing thin. Violent displays are trying to reset fear and renormalize their governance. But each spectacle gives us an opportunity to expose the system itself. Rather than focusing on the spectacle itself, we need to focus on educating and reporting on the supply chains, the international finance structures, the media propaganda, the legal shielding that legitimizes their governance and enables this spectacle. That is what worked in the first wave of British decolonization. It was fiscal strain and anti-colonial insurgency that caused international pressure on Britain. The elite lost backing, and that is how we got the concessions that we have today. The flags and the home rule governance. Decolonization was never completed though. Back in the mid-20th century, we never attacked the finance structures, the law, the insurance, the trade routes. That's the work that's still left to do for us in phase 2, and that is what we owe our decolonial heroes and ancestors. You have to make it really expensive for the elites and really embarrassing for them to be involved in this kind of thing. Sanctions, divestment, boycott and litigation work incredibly well, but they must be paired with exposing conflict of interest and tax trails, pressuring the middle band, the upper middle class band of elites, the ones who provide that administrative and financial scaffold that they rely on. Regulators, bankers, lawyers. Lawyers need a moral reckoning. It's about justice, not winning. If you can identify and disrupt their logistics, you make it harder for them to control those cash flows. Remember that spectacle shows fragility. It can be very scary and traumatic to see, but power displays prove the machine is running out of steam. Repression will intensify before liberation is found.